When first television sets started appearing as devices meant to take center stage in people's homes, manufacturers often put them inside beautifully designed wooden cabinets so they could serve both as decor and as functional devices. As TVs evolved, however, the focus seemed to shift more towards functionality than aesthetics, until relatively recently when manufacturers began introducing features like ambient mode, aiming to better integrate the TVs into living spaces. Samsung then took things a step further with its The Frame models, which were equal parts television and a decorative piece. For a long time, Samsung practically had this segment to itself, which is why these models also carried significantly higher prices than conventional TVs. Of course, TCL wouldn't be one of the world's largest TV manufacturers if it simply left an entire market segment to competitors. For several years now, the company has offered its own interpretation of this concept, one we were genuinely curious to try out. We finally had the opportunity, and the TCL Next Vision A300W in its 65-inch variant landed on our test bench. At first glance, this appears to be not only a decorative TV, but also a very capable one, featuring quantum dot technology, a 144Hz refresh rate, the Google TV platform, and a variety of other strengths. That combination of style and performance is exactly what caught our attention as a potential best of both worlds solution. So let's see how it actually performs and whether something like this might appeal to you as well. As usual, we'll start with the design, which is understandably very reminiscent of Samsung's The Frame models. The Next Vision A300W has an extremely slim profile with a white metal frame onto which decorative magnetic bezels can be attached, giving it the appearance of framed wall art. A nice touch is that these bezels are included in the box, so there's no need to purchase them separately. TCL provides a light birch wood-looking set with a mint and dark elm available as aftermarket purchase, which allows the TV to blend naturally into a wide range of interiors, whether you use the bezels or just the plain white frame. Viewed from the front, the bezel width strikes a good balance, distinct enough to create visual identity, but slim enough to preserve a modern look. From the side, the frame measures only around 2.4 cm in depth, with an additional centimeter added by the electronics housing and ventilation system. Altogether, it's very compact, and combined with the specially designed wall mount included in the package, the TV sits extremely close to the wall, exactly as you'd expect from a framed picture. That said, we'd recommend planning your cable setup in advance, because once mounted, accessing the ports without removing the TV from the wall isn't really practical. All connectors are grouped into a single section accessible from the underneath, although it's positioned far enough from the lower edge to disable quick access. In terms of connectivity, you'll find an optical audio output, CI+ slot, satellite and antenna connectors, one USB 3.0 port, and 4 HDMI ports. HDMI 3 and 4 are limited to 4K at 60 Hz, while HDMI 1 and 2 support refresh rates up to 144 Hz, along with gaming-oriented features such as variable refresh rate, auto low latency mode, and an eARC for audio devices. Although combining something that looks like an oil painting with gaming might not be the first thing most people will think of, the TCL A300W actually performs very well as gaming TV. Thanks to its high refresh rate, good response times at 144 Hz for a VA panel, support for FreeSync and G-Sync, and additional gaming features found in the dedicated game menu, it's a surprisingly capable option. Like the recently reviewed TCL C6K, this includes animated customizable crosshairs, support for playing in 16:9, 21:9, and 32:9 image formats, shadow enhancement, zoom function, and overlays displaying information such as current refresh rate, HDR status, and more. Where this TV becomes particularly interesting is in its display characteristics, because it brings features rarely seen on conventional TVs, especially at this price point. Most notably, we're talking about the matte screen finish, something we've previously only seen on Samsung's The Frame and OLED S-series models. Reflection handling is one of those things that contributes enormously to the real-world viewing experience, but you only truly realize how much once you experience a genuinely matte display. Our brains gradually adapt to reflections on glossy screens, so when they're suddenly gone, it becomes obvious how much more pleasant content is to watch without them. That said, the implementation here isn't quite as refined as on Samsung's aforementioned models, most noticeably when it comes to black levels. Reflection suppression is still far more effective than the typical anti-reflective coatings found even on high-end conventional TVs, but the way light diffuses across the surface creates a slight IPS glow-like effect, with black levels appearing somewhat uneven depending on viewing angles. If you're watching from a central position, however, this is practically unnoticeable, meaning your overall impression will depend heavily on viewing angle. Especially since the viewing angles themselves are typical for a VA panel, with slight drops in saturation and contrast beyond roughly 45 degrees. The TCL A300W delivers extremely high native contrast even by VA standards, ranging from 5500 to 1 up to an impressive 8300 to 1, depending on the picture mode. This allows it to reproduce a striking image with very deep black levels down to 0.018 nits in the most contrast-focused standard mode, even though it lacks local dimming. Like its the frame counterpart, the TCL A300W also uses edge LED backlight, and its uniformity is probably the weakest aspect of the TV overall. As for brightness, we measured peaks of 370 nits in SDR and 405 nits in HDR mode, which combined with the mate screen is more than sufficient for viewing in virtually any environment. Naturally, you shouldn't expect HDR performance on the level of something like TCL C6K, but the overall impression is still surprisingly good thanks to the strong contrast, mate display and quantum dot layer enhancing color vibrance. From the ideal viewing position, there were moments when we genuinely forgot we were watching a TV that technically doesn't offer true HDR performance, which is certainly praiseworthy. Color reproduction itself is particularly impressive, especially considering that matte coatings often negatively impact color vibrance, which isn't the case here. The image remains vivid and lively, exactly as we've come to expect from QLED panels. According to our measurements, this 8-bit plus FRC panel covers 89.4% of DCI-P3 color space. Color calibration is also very good, with the best measured delta E deviation being an excellent 1.6 in game mode, while movie mode was the most accurate among modes not requiring an external source, with a delta E of 3.5. The same impression we had with the C6K regarding factory image tuning applies here as well. TCL seems to be doing an excellent job optimizing the image and tone mapping for different types of content. All picture modes are well balanced, make proper use of available contrast, and avoid looking overly exaggerated or washed out, aside from slightly aggressive sharpening in some modes, which can fortunately be adjusted manually. Intelligent mode does a good job automatically adapting to different content and scenes, but there are more than enough controls for contrast, brightness, colors, and detail to tailor every mode to your preference. The TCL A300W also features an ambient light sensor, allowing it to automatically adjust brightness and color temperature to room conditions, which is particularly fitting given the decorative nature of this model. Speaking of image processing, this TV also includes a very capable MEMC motion processing system, configurable through preset modes or via separate sliders for blur and judder reduction. There's also dynamic acceleration, which utilizes the panel's full refresh rate for even smoother motion. As a result, you can achieve anything from a more cinematic but fluid image to ultra-smooth motion with minimal artifacts. In terms of sound, the TV uses a 2.0 speaker system with a total output of 20 watts, delivering more than respectable quality for this class. Despite the lack of a dedicated woofer, low frequencies extend down to around 48 Hz, although roll-off begins roughly below 160 Hz. Still, there's enough bass presence that the TV never sounds thin, offering a convincing experience for both music and movies. Audio processing options have a major impact on the sound signature, so for example, if you're primarily listening to music, we'd recommend disabling Dolby Atmos and manually selecting DTS-X instead, which provides a noticeably more balanced sound for that purpose. For movies with Dolby Atmos support, however, Atmos naturally becomes the preferred option. You'll also have access to 7 preset sound modes optimized for different content types, including an intelligent mode that automatically adapts to what's being played. Some additional settings depend on the selected processing mode. For instance, with DTS-X disabled in standard mode, you can access a 7-band equalizer, while enabling DTS-X replaces that with surround virtualization and bass, voice, and detail enhancement options. Unlike the C6K, there's no room calibration system here, but you still get options to optimize sound based on mounting position and improve vertical sound projection. On the Smart TV side, the TCL sticks with Google TV version 12, which arguably offers the broadest capabilities among competing platforms. You'll have access to a huge selection of apps, excellent Android games, all major video and music streaming services, plus apps such as Kodi, Streamio, Plex, and more. There are also various options for casting video and audio from mobile devices, voice control and search, as well as TCL-specific apps that enhance the experience beyond standard Google TV functionality. One of those is T-Exhibition, TCL's equivalent of ambient mode, and a particularly important feature on a model specifically designed around decorative integration. It includes a selection of classic artworks, animated versions of famous paintings, AI-generated artwork inspired by iconic art styles, including the option to create your own, stylized moving visuals for decoration or mood creation, such as virtual window overlooking the coast, and even the ability to display photos from your personal gallery. It's genuinely a thoughtfully designed feature that you'll likely enjoy using with this TV. For controls, you can use either the mobile app or the included remote, which features rounded edges and well-organized high-quality buttons with satisfying tactile feedback. One unusual detail is that the volume buttons are positioned on the side of the remote, similar to a smartphone, which actually turns out to be very practical. The only thing we didn't particularly like is the faux marble finish, which makes the remote look dusty. All things considered, the TCL A300W is not only an interesting alternative to the frame, but also a genuinely respectable TV with some very compelling strengths. Its matte reflection-free display, excellent contrast and color performance, solid motion processing, more than capable sound for this class, and decorative design and features make it a great choice for users who want something more than just a television without compromising picture or sound quality. Speaking of price, the 65-inch A300W costs around €760, which is significantly less than the current frame equivalent in this same size, which costs around €600 more. That wraps up our impressions, and we'd like to hear what you think about the TCL Next Vision A300W in the comments, and whether a TV like this is something you'd consider for your own setup. If you found this video helpful, leave a like and maybe consider subscribing to our channel for more interesting tech content. You were watching Bench House, my name is Ivan, and I'll see you next time.